Happy Wine Wednesday, everybody. I'm Holly. I've got my friends Cheryl and Ray here with me, and Kelly's coming along. She had to take her daughter to a volleyball game, so she's just running a little late, but she will be here shortly. So tonight I'm just drinking orange soda with some vodka, kind of getting in the Halloween spirit here. I did some Halloween decorating for my seahorses today. They got some new things in their tank that have to do with Halloween. So until Kelly comes along, I thought I'd just share that with you guys. And then if anybody has questions or anything that they want to talk about, please post it in the chat and we'll try to pay attention to that as we go along. So, in the meantime, let me get things ready here and I will share what I got.
I got a question though. Every week
You do, Ray. What's your question?
Every week it seems like somebody puts on some. Don't forget that thumbs up, gang. Coral just put in there. What's it?
Yeah.
I have no idea
So
what it means.
so on these live streams, you can do likes and you can do like super chat, and there's different things and symbols that you can use that give the hosts like credit, for what they're doing. If you get enough like viewers and super chats and things like that, people can actually get paid for that. So that's a way of giving the live streamers credit. I think I don't know exactly how it all works. You'd have to ask Kelly, but I do know that my husband watches live streams, and that's how some of these people get paid for what they do. So that has something to do with it. So, all right, I see Coral Works is here. Hi. And there's Zen Ginger. Hi, nice to see you. So, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we can watch some videos of the Halloween stuff today. So here we go, and you guys can let me know if this doesn't work.
Holly loves to terrify her seahorses.
Yeah, some scary Halloween stuff. So let me get this set up here. It'll take me a minute. I'm not used to doing this, so everyone bear with me. Okay, here we go. All right, sharing. And we're going to share that. Share. So here we go.
The pumpkin.
Yeah, so you can see it. Okay, so today was my tank cleaning and water change day. And I took the opportunity to give the seahorses their new Halloween things today. So this is Sadie, you see here. And one thing I've noticed about the seahorses is that when you give them new things, they're really quick to explore the small things that are about their size, like the little skeleton diver that she's hitched on. They're pretty quick to check those out, but when you give them something bigger than they are, a lot of times they take a while to figure it out. So you can see Sadie here. She's just kind of checking it out from afar at first. And I'm going to scroll a little bit and find. So here is just a little later. See if I can make it big. There we go. So a little while later, there she is closer to it. Now she's ready to check it out.
What I think is really funny is depending on, like if you have 30 or 40 young seahorses in one tank and you put stuff like that in there, it's going to take one of them. They're all going to be circling it and circling it. Finally, one of them is going to be raised and hitched to it. And the next thing you know, you're going to have 40 seahorses all hitched to the same thing.
Yeah, so you can see, even though Dandy, has trouble getting around the tank, he's kind of handicapped. By the time it was lunchtime, a little while later, he decided that he wanted to come eat lunch, behind the pumpkin. Even though it's a brand new thing, he traveled all the way across the tank to go check it out. And Sadie joined him. You can see they're eating lunch together here.
Put
So
food
I
in
feed.
the pumpkin.
Yeah, if I put the food in the pumpkin, they'd probably be quicker to go in it, but it'd also be harder for me to siphon it out
Oh,
after
yeah.
they're done eating.
It sure would be
Because I'd have to
funny.
soak the straw in there. But yeah, so they're enjoying that. So let's see if I can find. I think I gave. There's some pictures here. All right. So this is my tiki tank. So you can see I've all artificial decor in that. And on the left hand side, you see the new Halloween stuff over there that I put in. I put it all together in one
You bought
section.
them a house with lights.
Yeah, they've got a haunted house. I'm going to go back now to here. Stop sharing and let's see what I got over here because I can't see the chat at the same time I'm sharing. So, there's Zen Ginger. So cute. Yeah, the pumpkin is definitely suspicious to her. Yeah. So, like I said, I think in nature, if it's smaller than you, that means it's safe because you can eat it. If it's bigger than you got to be careful because it might eat you. So I think that's kind of how the seahorses look at stuff that's new. If I'm bigger than it is, I'm probably okay. But if it's bigger than me, I better be careful.
Piranha are smaller than you.
What's that?
Piranha.
Oh yeah, piranhas. Yeah, I'd be aware of those too. Perhaps you got to watch out for things that are tougher also. So I'm going to look and see what else I got here. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to share again. And let's take a look at this. My display tank. So this is a 55 gallon. And right now, the only seahorses that live in this tank are Sadie and Dandy. So they have that whole tank to themselves, other than I have a blue spotted goby, and he lives in that cave you see there. You can see my little spot of sand, right here. So that's all the sand that I have in this tank right now. That's for goby. And honestly, he doesn't really pay that much attention to it, so I don't think it's necessary. I think he thinks he's a seahorse now. He's become more like that the longer I've had him. He eats with the seahorses. He won't eat off the floor or out of a dish. I have to feed him with the turkey baster, and he catches it. So I target feed the goby. And then I have a little hermit crab in there too, and that's all that I have in this tank. Let's see if I have. I think I might have. That's my seahorse buddy. He lives in the tiki tank. And I do believe I have some pictures. Here we go. Here's some of the other things they got. So this is a little bat hitch. You can see Sadie checking that out. They both really like that. It's perfect for them to attach to and hitch to. There's Sadie with the skeleton again. She likes it right away.
The only thing that I've seen seahorses cautious around was at one point in time, I had a fairly large, about 3.5 inch tall glass seahorse. And I put it in with a bunch of juveniles. It must have taken them 45 minutes to get up enough nerve to get close to it because they kept swimming back and forth and looking at it. It must have been real and were waiting for it to move.
Uh-huh.
But it took them forever to finally get close enough to start hitching to it and realizing next thing you know, all of them are hitching to the same thing.
Yeah, it takes them a little while. One thing that I found with mine, when I first started giving them new stuff, they were a lot more suspicious than they are now. It would take them longer to check stuff out. And now I rearrange stuff, I get them new stuff fairly often, and they've become more trusting of it.
Yeah. But I've seen some pretty funny ones. Another one was you haven't lived until you've seen like 40 some odd 3-inch seahorses all hitched to one new object in the tank. And that meant that they were all hitching not only to the object, but to each other
But
to
each
get
other too.
to
Yeah.
get in there all together all at once. And of course, when you have a large number, it's safety. And they know it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's good for them to get new stuff because I mean if you think about it, in our tanks, they have a very limited habitat. They don't have a lot of room to really go exploring. They don't have new stuff happening. They look at the same old stuff every single day. So I think it kind of enriches their lives a little bit if we can change stuff up for them now and then or give them something new to look at.
Well, it's like when I put in the glass seahorse, which was probably about 5 inches tall. They
Mhm.
kept going back and forth, looking at it, and then they'd swim around it. They could start
Uh-huh.
swimming back and forth, and the whole thing is there's like 30 plus in there. They're all doing it in unison, and talk about sitting there laughing. I mean, I was about ready to fall off the chair on the floor the way they were responding to it because they were so curious, but they didn't quite ring a bell as a seahorse, or else it was just
It
too big.
probably did, yeah, being glass, it probably didn't look enough like a seahorse to them for them to mistake it for a seahorse. It was just a strange object. I
It
like
was
Zip,
funny.
to be fair, if I go in nature, I follow the same rules. I do not go exploring creatures bigger than myself, right? But Ray says a baby polar bear is smaller. And the trouble is that the mama bear is usually around and definitely bigger.
Well, it's also fun to watch them too. Like if you put a new hitch in, they'll start kind of swaying back and forth and circling it and checking it out. And all of a sudden, one will hitch. Next thing you know, you've got the whole every baby seahorse in the tank all hitching to each other onto the same object.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love watching babies. I miss having babies. I really do. I don't miss caring for them, but I miss seeing them.
They're
Oh, and hi, Vince is here. I see Vince is here. And then when I see Facebook user, I apologize. I don't know who that is. So hi to whoever you are. But it's nice to see everyone here. And in case you didn't hear earlier, Kelly is coming. She's just going to be a little late. So we'll have her soon. And in the meantime, if there's something you want to chat about or you have a question, go ahead and post it. Otherwise, I was just sharing some of my pictures that I did today. But if anybody else has stuff they want to share, please let me know.
Another one of my favorites is when I had my 90-gallon set up. I had a large adult pair in there, and they made it. They were obviously going to produce fry. And here's these two little guys that aren't maybe half, 3/4 grown, and they were dancing behind the rocks, and I didn't know it. Same day that the big pair delivered the fry, so did the little guys behind the rocks, and I was really scrambling for the fry. It was like totally unexpected. And the thing is, the little guy, they were hiding so much because the larger adults were going after them to keep them from
Uh-huh.
basically supporting their mate. So they were relegated to this one back corner, and they did it anyway. They managed to come pull it off.
That's sweet. Yeah, I have, well, in my tiki tank, I call it, it's my 75 gallon. I have 5 seahorses in there. 4 of them are females, and there's one male. And it's funny because he'll be alone doing his thing most of the time. But whenever he's interested in a female, or he's around a female and they're starting to pursue each other, all of a sudden he's surrounded by all the ladies. They all want to be a part. Like if somebody's getting attention, here come the other ones. Next thing you know, he's
I have
got,
actually
he's got
had
3 ladies surrounding him.
I have actually had one of my female combs that had already produced fry with the particular male, and an interloper came in, another female, and was trying to get him to dance with her. And that female literally grabbed her, flipped her, and pinned her on the substrate. She was not playing games. This is my male.
Yeah, Vince says paradise for the male. Yeah, I don't know. He's not doing his job here though. He's lazy. Like he doesn't he doesn't cooperate for the egg exchange. Like the females, they'll be pointing their heads up, let's go. They want to do the dance, and he wants to lay on the floor.
Yeah.
And he'll like lay on the floor and show them his pouch. Like put the eggs in here. And none of them are down for that. So I'm not having any fry
Well,
in that tank.
another one of my funniest ones was a young pair. There were at least, I don't know, 10 or 15 young juvenile hippocampus combs. Well, this one male started inflating his pouch. He wasn't even 6 months old, but he was inflating his pouch, and instead of it turning brighter yellow, the pouch would turn an orangey red color.
Oh wow.
It was really interesting. Anyway, a female started watching him and became very interested. And what did he do? He grabs her and starts dragging her in circles.
Oh
She was
my.
not impressed or happy. And she ultimately swam up, hitched to the top of his head. And to this day, I wasn't sure if she was telling him to get his pouch out of there or start using his brain. Because it was hysterical, because he was doing everything possible, dragging her in circles to get her to dance with him, and she was no part of this dancing stuff. She was just looking at him.
They are funny to watch. Speaking of that, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna find something else to share that happened in my tank the other day that was funny. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see.
I agree with Vincent's statement too about it's hard to get them to breed with too many seahorses. There's too much competition if you've got a large number, and they're all large adults.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
Yeah, I decided that one seahorse the female was telling the male, use your brain or get your head out of your pouch.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. I'm scrolling. I'm going through my stuff. I don't save stuff on the computer, so I have to look on my Facebook to find it. But I had something funny going on in my tank the other day, so I'm going to try to find that.
Seahorses do some goofy things sometimes.
Oh, here we go. Okay, I found it. Let me make it big and then I'll share. Here we go.
Oh no, she's blowing things up and going to share it.
Yep. If I can, I gotta get a hold of the thing to control the video. It's out of control right now. Oh, here we go. My Facebook is doing crazy stuff. Oh, here we go. Maybe Kelly's here. Let me go back and look. I can't see everything at once. Oh, no, she's not. Sorry, guys. I'm not used to doing this, so I don't have stuff ready. I just come in when it's an emergency and start stuff. So, not as good as Kelly. All right, I think we're almost there. Yeah, I see we're getting there. Here we go. All right, try again. All right, here we go. Share. So here you see what happened the other day. Sadie is sitting on Dandy's head. She has her tail wrapped around his face so he can't eat while she's eating his food.
Makes sense.
So you can see how he's wrapped around the little sign. Whoops, there it goes. But yeah, so she's sitting there on top of him, enjoying his meal so he can't eat with her tail wrapped around his snout.
They come up with some goofy things, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's what I love about them most. They're
Well,
fun to watch.
my worst case scenario when I was still working full time before I retired, I had a 55 and a 90, and I knew that the one male was pregnant. And sure enough, he started delivering before I had to go to work in the morning, which I was anticipating. So I got most of this fry out, looked over to the right at the 90-gallon, and guess what? I had another male delivering.
Oh my gosh.
2 broods of several hundred bouncing baby seahorses that I had to rescue in about 15 minutes because I was running out of time. That one got a little dicey. I
Yeah.
got them.
Here we go. Here's some more stuff I can share real quick. Yeah, so this is in the tiki tank. They've got a haunted house in there and a little witch with a bubbling cauldron. And that's Betty in the background there. She's checking out the haunted house.
The thing is, they do like certain changes to their tanks.
Mm-hmm.
And it,
I think as long as you leave them some familiar things like their favorites, like there's certain favorite hitches, like that white coral
yeah,
thing that she's sitting on. That's one of their favorites. And what I like to do with those type of decorations is I'll get duplicates. I'll have like 2 of them. And that way when one's in the bleach bucket, I just swap another one in.
yeah,
So most of the time they have their favorite go-to hitches, but the other decor I swap out and change around for them. And as long as they've got their favorite places that they like to go and hang out, they feel safe in going and exploring the new things.
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it is funny though to put new stuff in with little fry, because they will sit there and they start ganging up a group, and they'll be going back and forth and back and forth, and swimming in circles.
Yeah.
And finally, somebody will get enough nerve to hitch to it, and the next thing you know, you have a seahorse tree, because they're all hitching to each
Yeah.
other to hitch to the new object, and it cracks me up
Yeah.
when they do that.
I have, let's see, I think I have some fry video. I can share a fry. I have video of Sadie when she was a little fry. Let's see. It's been coming up in
Was
my
she a French
memories
fry?
lately. A little French fry Sadie. Let's see. Or maybe even Happy Do. I think I have one of him too recently. Takes me a while to scroll through all my stuff. Oh, so here we go. Here's a picture I can share. So
We
this
need
this is Sadie and her siblings when they were growing up. And at this point, this tank that they're in right here was a 3-gallon. There was 5 of them, and they were in there temporarily while I was cleaning their tank. I had just moved them to a 12-gallon because they were on frozen food and they were growing up. So I was cleaning out that tank and I had them waiting in here, but you can see what they're hitching on is gutter guard. And that was always one of my favorite hitches to use for the fry. And I just strap it on with zip ties onto like a bubble bar or some other weighted thing, to keep it from floating. And
Yeah,
they loved that stuff. And of course, when they were tiny, they'd swim in and out and hitch all over it. Here you can see they're getting a little bigger. So, but that was Sadie when she was a baby, and she's 3 years old now, a little bit over 3.
yeah. The biggest thing you got to watch out with things with smaller openings is as they grow, they have a tendency the head fits through, everything else should fit through, and they don't seem.
Yeah, that's true. I have totes full of different decorations for the seahorses, and I use different things based on the size that they are. Like when they're about the size that Sadie was there, I started using the chains. Here's Kelly.
Hey,
Hi,
hey
Kelly.
everybody. I don't want to interrupt what we're talking about, but happy Wine Wednesday. I'm going to catch up and just listen to Holly, but I do apologize. I was at a daughter's volleyball game and then I got pulled over on the way home. Good
Oh,
fun.
no.
I didn't get a ticket though. We're good. And continue, Holly, and I'll
All
catch up.
right. So
You were rushing to get home to do a seahorse presentation.
That's
And
right.
let
I
you
told
go.
you. I
yeah,
actually
he
told
probably
you, I
left.
just said, my seahorse peeps are waiting on me. So
He says, you can't make that up. So anyway, so at about the size I was just showing, I started giving them the chains, and they liked those yellow chains to hang on to. And now they don't like those anymore. They're too big for the chain. So eventually I phased out the chain. I gave them shower curtain rings instead. And now, they like those because it fits the bigger seahorses better. So, yeah, they gradually outgrow stuff, their sizes. So you can use different sizes of decor.
Yeah.
So anyway, Kelly, I was just sharing pictures, and one of the things I was sharing was back when I had Fry, and they were getting a little bigger, but I had them with the gutter guard. So I was showing, the gutter guard and how I moved up from the gutter guard. Then they had chains, and there's different things that they like to sit on, but you have to be careful because eventually they outgrow things and then they can get stuck because they're
Right.
used to being able to fit and then all of a sudden they don't fit anymore.
Yep. And Heather's the one that introduced us all, I think, to the shower
Yeah, the
ring.
shower curtain rings. Yeah,
My
they're
seahorses love
great.
those too. But
Yeah.
and I had a question about getting stuck though, Holly, because I think didn't you remove any of the fake plants that had like the where there wasn't much space between the bristles, or is that not you?
No, not plants. Well, I was. Oh yeah. Okay. I do remember there was something I had. It was artificial and it resembled grass.
Okay.
And I had that in my fry tank because it was tiny blades. So I figured, they'd attach themselves to that.
Right.
But because it was so bushy, they kept getting stuck in there.
Um,
Yeah, and it's
So
exactly
yeah,
the same
I
thing.
just forgot about that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I,
and
I,
actually, go ahead, Cheryl.
I was gonna say I ended up getting rid of that stuff because I realized that they would go in there, and the next thing you know, they would be struggling to get back out.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
was thinking that this is not a good solution for them. And that's when I went to the zip ties, the
Mhm.
smallest ones you can get, and made a whole series of rings, like shower curtain rings,
Yeah.
that they could hitch to because there was no way they could get stuck in them.
And I think we're
Mhm.
kind of coming at both angles here because because I was talking about adult seahorses, you guys were talking about fry, but let me just say first of all that my first fry tank before I knew what I was doing was filled with actual macros. Imagine how stuck they got in that. You should see little teeny fry trying to get out of Cato, and it was a mess. But I did have a few survivors in that tank, interestingly enough. But
They all can get stuck, I found. Any of them can get stuck. Any size from fry to adults. If they get in the wrong size of thing, they
well,
can get stuck.
Yeah.
I've had
and
to
with
break stuff apart getting them out
But
for
Sure.
one of my
decoration.
favorites was my very, very pregnant Combs male. And by then, I mean, I had him for over 9 years and he was big. But one day he decided he was going to swim through the opening where there was a rock near the back of the tank. Well, he swam up there and he realized he couldn't get through. And this is the first time I've ever seen a seahorse use logic. He raised up above this rock, swam over the top, and went back down to the other side where he wanted to be. I've never seen a seahorse
Nice.
use logic before.
I see it now and then. But Sadie's pretty good. Sadie's good about figuring out. There's sometimes when she has that great big artificial coral hitch from Ocean Aquaria. She's got one of those that sits in front of her food dish and it's got different branches. And sometimes she'll be in the wrong position to get to the food dish and she can't get through the branches to where she wants to be. But she'll take a minute and figure out that she needs to go up or
Yeah.
down or around. And it took her a while to start learning that, but now she's faster at it. And I put different ones in for her. So it's not always the same coral hitch in front of her dish.
Yeah.
But they're all like that. They're all branchy. So sometimes she wants to go straight to the food, but she can't fit. So she has to go around. So she's finally learned to look
Well,
around.
my male was used to being able to fit through there, and it never dawned on him that his pouch would not allow him to go through there anymore.
Yeah.
And that's what did him in. But he had the presence of mind to ultimately go up above it and swim over the top and then back down the other side. But I was thinking, oh my God, he's stuck. I'm going to kill my male Combs. And no,
Uh-huh.
he pushed against it a few times, realized he wasn't going to move, and he went over the top.
Well, first of all, is my audio okay? Because I just realized the AirPod's not working. That's why I'm
Yeah, you sound fine.
okay. Then I'm not going to worry about it for tonight. But the reason that I was asking is because I remember, I'm not sure who it was, but I remember someone telling me that they removed all the fake plants that had the pokey type close together. I have one, I can go grab it in a minute. But
Oh,
my point is, my seahorses have that figured out. They still like it. They still hitch to it. They don't prefer it. They prefer softer fake plants or the the smooth rings, or they even like the sorry, my kids are texting too. They even like the returns, the lock line returns. I'll come up. I told you guys forever that the seahorses tend to flock to the Robert King chamber, and they like to sleep hitched to the airline above that because bubbles are hitting them or whatever. And but I've noticed lately that a few of them, I'll find them hitched to the lock line return pumps with their faces in the return coming out. But I mean, I don't know why it's at the top of the tank. Like, I'll come to the tank and I'll get ready to turn on the light, and it's like they're right there, and it's like, oh my god, the water.
Mine, I have some that do that too. Check this out. I'm going to share. Speaking of bubbles and getting stuck and things, remember, Dandy is handicapped,
Right?
So he doesn't swim that well. He has trouble getting around. But he'd been watching Sadie enjoying the spa, enjoying this bubble thing I made for them. And usually he hitches around the base of it. But he decided he wanted to try it out the other day. So you can see he got himself up there. And then he was like ready to leave. And he's like, now how do I get off of this thing?
How funny.
So you can see he just kind of falls off of it over the other side. And then here in a minute, you can see how he has trouble swimming. See how he has trouble maneuvering?
Yeah, poor guy.
His body. So everything is really hard for him. So that's why I feed him, in the little shell dishes like I do. But he enjoys life. He gets around and does his thing, but I thought that was so cute. He'd been seeing Sadie enjoying those bubbles for the last couple weeks, ever since I put it in, but he hadn't gotten himself up there. And it took him a few tries and probably a good 45 minutes to get himself up on top of the bubbles. He tried really hard and finally made it. And then once he was up there, he was like, okay, I'm done. Now, how do I get down?
Well, hey, why not put in like an open airline that hits the bottom or something? You know what I mean?
Yeah, something on the floor for him. Yeah. Yeah. Well, at the base of it, there's bubbles because the little thing that makes the bubbles, it winds around the base of it. So there's parts along the floor that he can sit at, and he sat with those.
Who's got a door going? I keep hearing a door.
I think it was Ray.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So anyway, he sat in that, and stuck his head in and stuff, but he can't get his whole body in the part that's down low. And he's keeps seeing Sadie sitting up there. She'll sit right in it, of course, because, she's fine hitching there. And he's just been watching her all this time. And finally, he's like, I'm going to try that myself. I want to see if I can get in that spot.
Yep. I mean, they always want what the other ones have, for sure, for darn sure. It's funny to watch them see, oh, that looks
I call
fun.
that seahorse see, seahorse do.
Yes.
They're definitely bad about that sometimes.
Oh, I'm ready for Zen's question. What?
Yeah. So Zen says, so do they get cranky like some freshwater fish and pout if you change things around, or just mostly curious and maybe a little concerned? Laughing out loud. Yes, they do get cranky. And I'll tell you, Dandy especially gets cranky when I try to help him sometimes.
Ooh.
Like if he's struggling with something, like he's stuck with a decoration or a thing like that, I try to give him time to get loose himself and figure it out before I go to help him. Because sometimes when I help him, he then gets an attitude. He's like, I wanted to be there, or he wants to do it himself. And they get upset when I do when I do tank cleaning. They sometimes throw a fit, especially the younger ones. The older they get, I've noticed they get used to it and they just stay away. But when I used to clean the tank for the juveniles, I take out most of their decorations and only leave a few places to sit. And so they would go to the place that was empty where their favorite decoration used to be and throw themselves on the floor and start riding around like they were having a tantrum.
Oh my God.
And Dandy doesn't really do that much now. He just stays out of the way. He goes and hides behind the Robert King chamber. Sadie will still swim to the empty part of the tank and do a frantic dance like, where'd my stuff go? Where's my stuff?
How funny.
And just kind of throw a fit.
Thing is, seahorses do have a memory, and they do utilize that memory to help them get through all kinds of stuff.
Know where the safe places are, sure.
My favorite one was my one female that I got. I brought in several seahorses at the same time, and she was very small and very shy. And she would not go down and eat when the other seahorses were eating. She would wait until there was nothing left and then go down and try to feed. And I knew that was not a good recipe for her eating. So I started putting thawed Meister shrimp on a little bamboo skewer and holding it over in the back left corner. Well, it didn't take her long to figure out she could go to the back left corner of the tank and eat totally undisturbed by any of the other seahorses. Okay. So now we've got a little bit of a problem because there came a point that she was big enough that she could take care of herself. And the way I knew that was the day I walked up with the skewer and she was in the right front corner and took off and swam as fast as she could to the back left corner to get fed.
Yep.
Who had who on that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Trained for sure. Yep.
So I gotta share. Here's another example. This is today cleaning the tank. So you can see here's that little bubbling reef, and I have it turned off, because I'm cleaning. And you can see my goby behind it. You can see Goby and Dandy are sitting together there. But in front of Goby, where the sand area is, that's where his house goes normally. And today it went to the bleach bucket. So, so he was unhappy about that. So he's hanging out with the seahorses, and everybody's just waiting for the tank to get clean. But he doesn't like it either. When I take away his cave to clean it, he will hang out in the spot where it was and sit there looking at me like, when do I get my house back? And he's shyer than the seahorses. So he'll also go and hide behind their stuff, if he sees me, coming too close, with the siphon or things like that. He'll go hide, but he's territorial of his cave. Like if the seahorses get too close to his cave opening, he'll give them a nip. But when his cave is gone and it's just him, he'll go hang out with the seahorses and they all get along because they're in the same boat.
He has his cave. Is he protective of it?
Yeah. He's all, this is my house. When his house is gone, he's like, oh crap. Now I'm vulnerable. Now, protect me, seahorses.
How fun. They are funny. I would say I don't have any particular stories. I mean, I could come up with some. I had the bachelor pad where my moodiest seahorses that were just constantly 3 males, constant jerks. I finally put them in their own tank where they just kind of found their own territories and left each other alone, and that worked for me. But typically, in every other, I mean, I've had a lot of seahorses, and I went through a lot of seahorses to get to the point where I had 3 males that literally just couldn't get along in a tank. That doesn't usually happen. So it's not really a good story about just moody seahorses, because they do get moody. And I would say, Ray, when a seahorse is moody, I want to pull Ray into the conversation here. Do they typically change color in your experience when a seahorse is ticked off or not happy about something?
Well, I guess I'm not very observant, because the only moody change I ever see is if they're in the mood to dance.
Well, even then, don't they change color?
Yeah.
So,
Well, but I don't know about any other time.
But so I'm just trying to get to the point and pull you in. But basically, when they're moody in a good mood, like, oh, frisky, ooh, I want to dance, ooh, come here, baby. I've seen them turn silver. I've seen them turn bright white. Even the darkest black seahorse or my big purple seahorse, he would look white, and you'd be like, what the heck? And they'd be dancing around, and they almost look like they blush white, because they've got, like, especially dark seahorses, they've got speckles, or at least mine did, had speckles all along his Cheryl would know the proper term,
Dandy's got
or whatever,
those,
their
yeah.
cheeks, dang it. And so when he would get in the mood to flirt, all of a sudden he'd go pale white, and it looked like he was blushing, because then all of a sudden you could see these dramatic spots on his face. And it was, I mean,
yeah,
and that could
so
be worrisome for someone seeing it for the first time, but it's not. It's cool. It's wonderful. And then on the other end, they get moody, like Holly was talking about. When you do a huge water change or move their decorations, they're going to come around. It's not like you can't do it. We all do it.
Yeah, you have to do it. They get used to it, but yeah, they have an attitude about it. Sometimes, some more than others.
In my current tank, I've got 2 of Vincent's seahorses, 2 Ocean Riders, and I'm talking about the all-in-one. In the bigger tank, I've got the other seahorses, but 2 Vincent seahorses, 2 Ocean Rider seahorses, and 1 Holly seahorse, and they get attitudes anyways, because, well, certain ones, I should say, certain seahorses, typically the males.
Yeah.
And the males will get attitude if I haven't fed at the time that they expect to be fed. They will. And I don't mean like they go around pecking each other or they turn black or anything, but they'll start aggressively dancing against the glass, like, come here. It's time to feed. And then another point I would make is that if you see your seahorses turning dark, okay, then it's time to investigate. I've had seahorses turn dark just because they happen to like, a sponge filter that's dark. And so they hang out at it most of the time. And when they swim away, they just kind of stay that dark color usually, unless they're courting. But if you have a bright yellow seahorse or whatever, if it starts gradually changing color, that's just them getting used to the tank. But if it's a dramatic, oh my gosh, one day he's bright yellow, the next day he's black, then you need to investigate something's pissing him off, whether it be something in the tank and an attitude, or something that's affecting him internally, or, bacterial or something like that. So just watch for that, because they will change colors for sure. But if it's really dramatic, they're either happy and courting, and then in that case they get lighter, or they're really upset about something, and it could.
Dandy is a naturally dark seahorse, but he will turn almost black when he's mad. He's upset. He turns almost black. And Zen says, I'm hearing the moral of the story is, if I want to clean stuff without making them mad, buy 2 of everything. That's even if you have 2 of everything. Because I have 2 of a lot of things, but still, and sometimes, I mean, they get the stuff back really quick within an hour or 2 of tank cleaning. But
let me make this point, please. The point, then the moral of the story is, you are the mom or the keeper, however you want to put it. Ray would never call himself a mom, right? but I'm saying you are in control of the tank, and you know you're not going to hurt them by changing things around, and you know they're going to get it back. So
Yeah.
Holly is a mommy, and she, we notice these things. Ray never even noticed his seahorses ever got upset because they'll be
Yeah.
fine. It's as Cheryl was talking about. It's them starting to control you, and you starting to cater to them, and
Yeah.
that's not how it should be. So do your change, and
Yeah.
just they'll get over it. But
Yeah, they're back to normal like not long after. Like it only takes an hour or two to do your water change and and change out their stuff. And like I said, they're stoked on the
right,
new stuff. And I'm not changing out everything in the tank at once. It's a few things here and there, and there's staples that don't change. There's a few staples, like I said, their favorite hitch is always there. Or something else like in the same spot. Like there's certain spots they like to be in the tank, and it doesn't matter what's there as long as they have something to
sure,
hang on to. And that's kind of how I like to use the little Halloween and Christmas decorations that are about the same size as a seahorse, because they like those little hitches, and especially in the corner of the tank, they like to sit there, and they really don't care what they're sitting on. I can swap those things out easily. And like I was saying at the beginning of the stream, the smaller stuff, they don't have a problem with. They'll go to it right away. They're braver about it.
big,
The bigger
sure.
stuff, like that pumpkin I showed earlier, takes them a little while to get brave enough to go explore and figure it out, but they do eventually. The little stuff, they'll usually check it
Yeah,
out
they're
right
leery of
away.
change, but we have focused in on swapping out decorations or moving things around in the tank. I want to make the point that in most of the circumstances we've talked about here, it's either a very shy seahorse like Cheryl had, or it's during a water change, right? So you have to also think it's not really about it. I mean, it is. It is about swapping out
Mhm.
decorations and the tank being emptied when they need their hitches and we're cleaning the tank. I don't take as many things out because I have rock in the tank. Zen, I think you're planning on going
Mhm.
for a more natural tank. I don't know. Let me know in the comments. But if you're planning on a tank that there's things that you don't remove, it's not as drastic. And therefore, when you see seahorses get stressed or whatever, when you're doing a water change, either it's when they're new and you're doing water and they're not used to it. As Holly said, as they get older, they get used to you, they get used to it. But it's just going to happen because you got to think you're changing the water chemistry. So, everything's changing, but it's not just the decorations. It's also possibly the temperature. If you're not careful, it's the pH, probably. All that stuff is making them antsy, but they get used to it and they get over it. You got to do your water changes, right? So,
Yeah. So here's an example. I'll share this. So this is during the water change today.
Holly's got the
And
videos. Yeah,
yeah, so this is Sadie and Dandy, and you can see there's some pieces of stuff floating in the water. I'm in the middle of the water change. So on this side of the tank, I have their stuff here for them to sit on, and they're playing. They're having hanky panky time on that side of the tank while I'm cleaning. So they're okay with it. It gets done every week. So, so they know about it. And it's just a fact of life for them. And not everybody takes as many things out at once as I do and swaps stuff out, but they'll get used to your routine, whatever it is.
sure. Agreed. And they look so cute.
Yeah, and that you can see they're having a good time. They're not stressed, even though there's crap floating everywhere. There's a siphon going, and half the tank is empty of stuff. They're okay. They're getting through it.
Yep. I
And,
always,
and Goby's loose, because his cave is gone.
there's Goby. Hey,
he's
I'm
he's the
curious.
worst.
I'm curious about that too. I think I've asked it before, and then I'm going to go back to Zen's question or Zen's comment too. But do you guys worry about that at all? Like if you find a spot in the tank that's really dirty, and you're trying to suck it up, but of course everything goes everywhere. You got to kind of chase the stuff as you're doing the water change. Do you worry about that? Them breathing it in, or no?
I kind of do when it's real bad sometimes, but it's honestly never been an issue. The worst is when like I have to scrub like coralline algae off the sides of the tank sometimes, and you get that fine powders floating around.
Yeah.
I leave the pumps on when I'm doing the actual cleaning, the scrubbing part, to try and get as much of it out as I'm scrubbing as I can. Then finally, I turn off the pumps and let it settle and siphon it out. But I try to also not scrub everywhere
Yeah.
every time so that they have some place to go where I'm not working on. Like I'll leave places for them to sit in one section. Like today you saw where I was showing them playing in the dirty water. I didn't really clean that section today. I left their stuff there and concentrated on the other side of the tank. But probably next week or another 2 weeks, I'm going to want to do that area. And then they know from experience, because this happens every week, when I'm working on that area, they will move to the other side and go sit over there. Because they're like,
Sure.
oh, Mom, you're working over here. We're going to go over here. We don't want to sit.
Well,
by
and
that.
I made the comment earlier about, I don't remove as much because I don't have as much artificial stuff. I've got more like rock and pieces that just stay. But the thing is, I do want to make the comment, if I have a rock covered in algae, I'm going to take it out of the tank to scrub
Mhm.
it because I don't want that stuff, especially algae, because it's got spores and stuff, and it just makes
Yeah,
me nervous. So in my artificial decorations, I take them out and bleach them and then prime
that's
them.
how I do
So
mine.
none of that stuff ends up in the water in the tank, right? You're
Mhm.
literally removing it outside the tank. So the rocks I don't remove if there's nothing on them, of course, but if there's like growing turf algae or something, I'm scrubbing it outside of the tank. In coralline algae, you can't do that.
Yeah,
That's
for me, it's more stuff on the sides of the tank. Like if the sides of the tank are growing algae, or because I do bare bottom, there's a film sometimes that gets on the bottom that I'm scrubbing off every week. So it's that. Like all the decorations I pull, like Kelly said, are going to the bleach bucket.
right.
So anything that's on them isn't getting loose in the tank. And I love what Zen says. I just know some fish, like my discus, would go to the bottom and pout like they were going to die, even laying on the ground sideways if I did so much as add new plants. Such drama queens.
Absolutely.
Seahorses do that too. Seahorse, especially the juveniles. Oh my gosh, I remember cleaning their tanks and they would act like they were dying. They would throw themselves on the floor and lay down and act like they were just going to die
Right,
from the
right, right.
time that they were little fry sometimes. And eventually I learned they're playing possum. They're just being dramatic, like you said. They'd get up and get going again
I was
soon
gonna
enough.
say, if you handle your seahorse tank like Ray, and you do what you need to do and walk away and don't even observe the temper tantrum, then
The
they're
tantrum.
fine. I mean, they're fine. It's
Mhm.
it's them just trying to play you for sure. And again, with the rock or the comments about removing stuff, I just wanted to make the point that even when you have rock and stuff that's live, if it's a bad situation, take it out of the tank. You don't put it in bleach, obviously. You don't want to kill the good bacteria,
Yeah.
but you can put it in old tank water and scrub it in there, and then
Mhm.
like maybe dip it in new water and then put it back in the tank, and you're set. But yeah, I wanted what actually before I go to it, Cheryl and Ray, did you just never worry about the particles floating around the tank when you scrub? Was it just never a concern?
It's
When I
not really
scrub,
that like that, but I typically do is I use power heads to move everything into one corner. I need to try it as. And so basically, when I go in to clean a tank, unless I've got something that's developing green hair algae, like a rock that's developing it or something like that, all I'm going to do then is go in with a siphon and clear out that one section where I already pushed everything into. But the thing is, that when you're doing that, it's a clean. Basically, you're doing a small cleaning at least once a week minimum.
Right.
And,
Well,
yeah,
you should be doing that anyways. But Cheryl, so you're saying that you have your flow set up so that nothing collects anywhere but this spot.
exactly.
That's got to be some high flow for real.
And it works. I mean, the thing is, I can let a whole tank get stuff on it, and then I can just move my power heads around and get everything pushed into one corner. So I only actually clean, and I can also use, I have brushes on my siphons. So if I got a little bit of stuff that I missed, I can push it back over to that same corner. And so I only actually siphon off of one corner unless I've got a really new tank that's doing something like showing me green hair algae or something like that. But that's not a big deal either.
Well, I would have to say that's when you get your entire tank and cycle and water change completely in sync. Because as Holly was saying, in my tanks, I get the flow where I want it and it's perfect, but I still don't have it so well set up that it all collects in one corner. I still have to wipe the sides, wipe the bottom, and Dan does suggest doing that too. So unless you're really honed in to exactly how your tank works, like Cheryl is, you should be wiping the sides inside. I mean, and
Yeah,
you know, if you
well,
have a bare
I use
bottom,
the brush.
bare bottom.
If I have anything stuck on the glass or anything, I use the brush on my siphon to move it into the power head flow. And basically, I scrub it first with the brush. Then
Yep.
I turn on the power heads and it pushes everything into one corner. And then I
Easy.
suction everything out. And
I like that. I'm going to start trying to use power heads because that's my fear is that after I scrub, if I don't instantly use a power head, I just feel like they're swimming around in this crap and they're breathing it in. I don't know if that's even true. It's just how I feel.
well,
they must be because they don't have a choice.
Just use quick filters on the power heads. Exactly. You can either use filters on the power heads if they're too high, or if they're adjustable. I'm not using a high flow on the power heads. I'm just moving everything over to one corner. So basically, my cleaning technique is I have one corner to clean.
Yep, I get it. It's a good technique, and I think
I'm running my quick filters too, but there's so much crap it can't suck it out fast enough.
Right. That's what I wanted to ask Greg. Is I get what you're saying with quick filters, and you've got the quick filters on all the time, so they're collecting the stuff anyways, and you can just pull that, clean the quick filter. I get your point, but even when you pull the quick filter, stuff comes off of it as you're pulling it out, and when you scrub the sides of your tank, what?
When I take it out, it's already got the stuff embedded into the filter material well enough that it's not going to drop off.
So it doesn't, when you pull it out of the tank, no puff.
Right.
Well, good. I mean, you're better than me because when I pull any sponge or anything like that on my tank, there's a puff. Stuff.
Yeah, I use a plastic coffee can when I pull out my quick filters. They drain out into the coffee can because the stuff will drain out when I lift it up.
Either way, Ray. So did you scrub the sides and bottoms of your tank? And when there was the stuff floating around, you just didn't worry about it?
Well, whenever I did that, I was doing a water change. So I just let it settle and do the water change and suck the stuff out when I'm changing that water.
So I guess that was my point is nobody else is crazy like me and worries that the seahorses are breathing it in. Okay. That's the answer.
Yeah. Well, and it's like one of the things too is technically I've got oversized sumps for each tank that's set up. And it enables me to run large 100 micron filter socks and a lot of stuff in the sumps that most people don't have. And it makes it a lot easier also for me to clean because basically by the time it starts getting to the final chamber in the sump, the water is crystal clear. You're not going to find anything in it.
No, I know. I'm literally just talking about during the scrub.
During the
Yeah.
time when they're in there and you're scrubbing. I
Yes.
get it. I think about it, but I haven't, like I said, I haven't had any problems. I'll
Yeah.
see that sometimes I'll see them coughing or sneezing, and I'm like, I'm sorry,
Right,
you know,
right.
step stirring it, you know, they're like, "Pah, pah."
But
I'm like,
this is
I'm
for your
sorry, we're
good.
almost done. So I know, like you said, they are breathing it in because they don't have a choice, you know, but
Well, and Ray
as
just said, just think about what the seahorse takes in when water is in turmoil from a storm, like in the wild. You're right.
yeah,
And they're
yeah.
breathing in all sorts of stuff there too. That was my question. The answer is don't worry about it. That's the answer. And Zen said, I use a gallon sized baggie to grab the filter and turn it inside out before I pull the sponge. That's interesting
Yep,
too.
I've
I
done
might try
that.
that too.
I use baggies, the plastic coffee can. Like I said, I use different stuff and do that. Yeah, because when I found whenever you disconnect one of those power head spongy things to pull it out, all the crap comes floating out of it before you get it to the surface of the water.
I don't
Well,
like sponge
And
filters anyway.
You said, Ray, what?
I don't like sponge filters. I never use them.
Which a sponge filter is very different than a quick filter for sure. So he's talking about
well, same thing.
The
My
quick
quick
filter
filters
is
do it
just
too.
an attachment that holds filter material, and you can put in it either what is designed to go in it, or you can do like I do, and I'm pretty sure Holly is doing now, where you
Yeah.
use something else, and as long as it takes it in, and you can clean it out. But the damn sponges, I never could get all the crap out of them.
Right. Sponges are a pain. But I
And
would
they
say
deteriorate too fast.
we got to remember that Ray is the guy that walks away from his writhing seahorses throwing a fit about a water change, right? So Ray might not even notice if there's a puff because he's like, I'm doing my job and I'm good.
He's just doing his thing.
I'm
Yeah.
just teasing with you, Ray. But no, good points. And I mean, I guess I'm just making the point that anybody knew if you're worried in the water change, don't be, because they'll be fine. Is the bottom line.
Yeah,
I worry
it
too.
all works out.
And I did want you to put up Zen's point or Zen's comment about I want sand and I want gorgonians.
Oh yeah, I did. I had that up a
Oh,
minute
sorry.
ago, and then the conversation moved on. So let
Okay.
me
It's all good.
find it.
I can say. She said, I want
can-
sand and I want gorgonians, but I really like all the cute, silly decorations. So probably 50-50. I think that's
There
a good way to do it
Bring that
because I find,
Mhm.
in my experience at least, that the artificial decorations, if there's stuff going on in the tank and algae is going to grow, it's going to be there. That's just been my experience. It doesn't grow on the live stuff as much if you have the artificial, right? So I've had tanks that were completely natural, sand, gorgonians, you've seen them. And I'd have problems in there too, don't get me wrong. I've had completely artificial tanks, but in a mixed tank like what you're talking about, it just has been my experience that if there's going to be problem algae, it grows on the artificial stuff for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe because the live stuff, it has stuff to fight it off. I don't know. But then it makes it easier because you can remove the
Then you
artificial,
pull that out.
bleach it,
Yeah.
and then you're good. Because it's a pain in the butt if a gorgonian, a live one, starts getting turf algae growing on it. Oh, that's not fun. Not fun at all. So
Yeah, I started with a combination.
Yeah.
I had live rock, and then I had artificial decorations and stuff also. And the reason I got rid of the live rock was because it became a pain in the butt to keep clean.
Sure.
And like Kelly was saying, you take a piece out at a time and scrub it in a bucket of water, but you can't take them all out, and then I was using peroxide trying to treat them too for algae, and it just got to be a pain in the butt. Then you're trying to put it back in the same place where it was before, and it's like a puzzle. They don't go right back.
Well, I know, and I agree with you, Holly. But like in the all-in-one, In fact, in the all-in-one and in my 65, I haven't had to remove and scrub a single piece of rock. Just because, okay, in the 65,
But you had,
hang on, in the 65, I think it's because it's so cycled. It's such an old tank that's had previous
yeah,
sources in it. It's on point, like one of Cheryl's tanks where I know what to expect. I know
yeah,
when it's getting dirty. I can tell. I can tell if it, oh, maybe I need to do a bigger water change. The all-in-one's a different story. I didn't know it as well. I've only had it for a year or two, but in that tank, I had artificial decorations too. And so for some reason, all the stuff grew on those and I can just pull them and bleach them. And I think it's a trick maybe, like it catches it in the water flow. I do keep, like I was talking about earlier when we were talking about seahorses getting stuck, I do keep the fake plants that have the spiky, hard things that seahorses don't prefer, but it
mhm,
catches all the stuff flying through the
algae.
tank. It
It
catches,
does.
and then I can pull it, and it doesn't get on the rocks and stuff. So I don't have to remove the rocks. I'm just trying to say, Zen wants a tank with sand and gorgonians, probably rock too. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm still doing it myself. Holly prefers her method, and it's not wrong. I like rock for the structure and for that kind of thing. You can do that with fake stuff too. It's what you want. None of us here prefer sand. We're still going to help you get an amazing sanded tank, and I've had them before, and we'll help you do
Mhm.
it because that's what you want. You should get what you want. This isn't about catering to seahorses. This is about having a beautiful tank, right? And I was thinking too, guys, not to go left field here, but I think we need to do a week about fry and really hone in and like do some posts and ask people to post their setups and what's worked for them and kind of hone into fry, because all of these new folks like Zen that are going to be keeping seahorses, that have kept other fish and know the basics but just want to focus on seahorses, they don't realize it, but they'll have fry pretty quick. Right? So
Mhm.
unless you're me and you can't get fry, but
Yeah.
I think we need to do a session on fry. But back to the point, yeah, I just think it's about what you want in a tank.
Mhm.
You can make it completely sterile. You can make it completely artificial. You can make it completely natural, and all those ways can work.
Mhm. And the sponge filters, like Zen brings up, Shelley uses them on small tanks.
Yeah.
And the sponge filters really, I only use for raising fry, like in a small tank, or possibly a hospital tank if I'm not doing medications, because I don't want the sponge filter to pull medications out. So if I was just doing a plain water hospital tank with no medication, I might use a sponge filter. But other than that, the Robert King chambers are part sponge filter.
Yes, they are.
That's part of what they are. But you use that in addition to your other stuff, not instead of.
Right. And the sponge filter is still a pain in the butt, even on the Robert King chamber. And I just messaged him this week. I'm going to find out he does want to come back on and do a special guest Wine Wednesday. So I will let you guys know when that's coming. I'll make sure you have some advance notice so you can be here. But we're gonna ask him, what do we do about the sponge filter we don't like, and what's new with the entire thing? Because it's too good not to use, even though we might not like sponge filters. But I'm with Holly. And I did want to say, Zen, you're kind of scared of live rock. You'd rather wait a long time for a cycle and use some of the sort of sanitized dead rock. That's what I meant. I'm sorry. I should thank you
Yeah,
for correcting me.
that's the difference
I
too,
don't know
because I didn't
live rock.
use that. I did use live rock,
Okay.
and yeah, I would do that
I,
again.
I really appreciate you guys correcting me, because when I said rock, and I probably even said live rock, I didn't mean to. Every rock in every one of my tanks was completely cleared of anything, dried, uh, made completely not live, and then I cycled it. And it does take longer when you're talking about dead rock, but that's the rock I have in my tank. The rock in the all-in-one is rock that probably, well, all rock was at one point live, probably, except for my 65 gallon is like actually man-made rock. Like, so I could make it into particular
That's cool.
design that I wanted. But in the all-in-one, I'm using rock that at one point 50 years ago was probably live, but it's been in my tanks. It's been recycled. It's been bleached, not bleached. It's been cured, excuse me, and all that good stuff. So yeah, thank you for correcting me, because I wouldn't say live rock. I would say rock that you have taken care of to make sure that it's clean. Okay, no,
So we've got
it is
Bonnie here. Should we go to that?
Yeah, from
The new.
Bonnie. Yeah.
Yeah, so Bonnie has loved seahorses forever, setting up a new seahorse saltwater tank and knows some information, done some research, but's wondering what species looks like. And I would say the way I feel about it, I've kept a few. I think Erectus and Reedi, if you're in the United States, are probably the two best beginner ones to keep. I love my Erectus. They're hardy, they're funny, they're fun to watch. They get colorful. How do you guys feel about that? What are your favorites?
Before I overcome, Ray, what would you say a newcomer should pick as a species?
Is this the one
I'm
from
not
Lonnie?
sold
I asked Ray.
on there being anyone that's better than another.
Yeah.
Take what's available.
Depends on what's available. That's true. Because if Chris Carey was here right now, if you're in Australia, he would recommend Whitey Eye.
Yeah, it depends on where you are.
Which are very similar to Erectus. But if you are in the U.S., I would agree with Holly. Erectus are the hands down easiest seahorses to keep, the most hardy. I mean, we talk about these exotic species we've kept, but it's not as easy, right? So as a newcomer, I would steer towards Erectus. Cheryl, what were you going to say?
I was going to say I would go with Erectus. They're typically very hardy. They're not hugely expensive like some of the other species. And they tend to do very well in an aquarium if you buy from a reputable breeder. The keys are get your tank set up, get it cycled, get it ready, and then go with a really reputable person that does retail on and preferably raises their own seahorses so they stand behind them 100%.
Can't agree more.
They're also easier to find too.
Yep. And Ray, you made the comment, and actually I agree with you. The easiest species to keep is actually what?
The abdominalis.
The abdominalis. And what? And because they're extremely hardy. I mean, they can go through anything, but what's the catch to keeping them?
Well, you got to keep them cool.
That's right.
A maximum temperature is 68 degrees or 20 Fahrenheit or centigrade.
Yeah.
And that's a maximum.
Yeah.
And so, first of all, they seem to do well anyway, but when you couple that with the cooler water temperatures, you have far less trouble with any bacterial infections.
I agree 100%, and I think Dan would too, and probably everybody else. If you're able to set up your tank for a cooler water species, right? So literally, as Ray said, it can't go above a certain temperature. So that does mean you can't keep gorgonians. You can't keep any of the other fish. You can't keep anything in that tank that can't handle cooler waters, right? But if you can set up a tank like that and have a chiller or some method to keep the tank below that temperature, they are absolutely the easiest to keep for the reasons that Ray described. I just think that most newcomers want more than that, right? Like they want more than just the seahorses, which a tank of abdominalis would be amazing. But it's also
why I've had more tanks.
But
it's
the thing with abs is
really,
they're a colder water species. They have very specific requirements because of their size. They get extremely large as seahorses go. And they are from Australia, and they are expensive to get your hands on, very much so. And that,
They were cheaper than the reed eye.
yeah,
Well, you're in Canada though, Ray. That's
Probably
different.
depends on where you live.
I imported them right from Seahorse, Australia.
yeah.
And it's harder for us to do here because of U.S.
I
customs.
don't think we can get seahorses from Australia
Not
here.
currently.
And I haven't seen abs offered from any of the American dealers when I was looking.
They actually cost me $35 a piece.
That's insane. That's so crazy. I mean, that's so crazy considering how much we pay for them
Hey.
today.
I paid $30 for a pair of hippocampus combs.
Yeah, but you got them out of. You were lucky, and you did a good job.
Hey, they lived with me for over 9 years.
Don't bring that up. But hey, Zen Ginger said, Ray or anyone, would you say that keeping other species as low its temp as possible is always the best route regardless? Or are there times to increase the heat, like with breeding?
I would say it's going to depend on what other things you have in the tank. If you're going to have something else in the tank that needs the warmer temperatures and will suffer if you drop the temperature, then you don't want to do it then, of course. But just research what you're going to do. For me, it wasn't a problem because I'm more into species only tanks. I have multiple species, but they're not in the same tanks.
Right, but and you made a great point, right? But in the question, she's saying overall, though, for seahorses in general, isn't it
Kelly?
best, hang on, Cheryl, isn't it best to keep the temperature as low as possible? That's the first part of the question. Isn't it best to keep seahorses at a lower temperature, like under 74 degrees, period?
I prefer it myself, but it's not a rule type of thing or an absolute. As long as you know what you have to watch for or do by keeping it at the maximum temperature or above. Like there's all sorts of people that keep them at 77, 78 degrees.
But they're doing
it's going to make it more difficult, and they're going to have to be prepared to have diseases that they normally wouldn't have those diseases at the lower ones. At the lower temperature.
Yeah. What I was going to say is one of the things with seahorses is they can actually handle, depending on the species, varying degrees of gradients in terms of temperature. 1 year I was working, when I was working with Erectus and first starting out, I had a tree come down, took out my power in an ice storm, was without power for 12 hours, and my nursery system got down to about 44 degrees. And all my fry were laying on the bottom, not moving. And I started gradually rewarming them very slowly, and none of them died. They all made it. It took me 3 days to get them back up to the normal temperature, but they survived it and they went on and did just fine and grew perfectly. So there's a lot of variability in terms of what kind of temperatures you can do. You're typically with seahorses better off with colder temperatures than too warm.
So let me make a couple comments real quick. The reason that I personally tell anyone who asks me what temperature and what can I keep with my seahorses, it's anything under 74 degrees, 75 degrees, because the basic reason is because seahorses have a weakened immune system, okay? And so at colder temperatures, the bacteria and the stuff that can grow in the water can't affect them as much. You can have really strong seahorses, if you get lucky, that can handle 78 degrees with no problem. You can also do massive water changes or have massive equipment that's keeping the water so clean that you can keep the temp at 78. But if you're an average or new keeper and you don't want to have to go to extremes, then you stay under 74 degrees. That's my 2 cents. Abdominalis is a different story. We can't get them anyways. But as Zen Ginger said, basically, I'm willing to give up the Gorks and even pay for a chiller if it would make them significantly healthier. But if I can get away with 71 to 75 range without much issue, you'd rather. I've never bought a chiller.
Yeah.
Yes, you can. I've never bought a chiller. And as Ray said, it's not a rule. It's just, do you want to succeed? I say under 74, 75 degrees, I can pull it off with my house without buying chillers.
Yeah,
Expensive equipment.
you got to know the temperatures in your house. Like my seahorses, I keep them between mid 60s to low 70s year round.
Yeah.
In the winter, it drops down to the mid 60s usually. In the summer, I'm hitting the 74 mark. I have chillers and heaters because where I live, the water temperatures could drop to the 50s. If I didn't have heaters, it could go up to the 80s if I didn't have chillers. So I run both and I keep them in that range. Now, what you will notice is that if you're keeping them at lower temperatures, they do slow down. Like when you get to the mid 60s or colder, they're not going to want as eat as much. They're not going to want to swim as much or do their
Kind of
systems kind of
hibernating.
slow down.
They're kind of
Yeah, so
hibernating.
your 71 is fine if you can keep them right around 70. Like I found like high 60s, low 70s, boom, you're right in that ballpark that's safe for them and they're active.
So one more thing, I would say if you can keep them between 71 and 75, as I do, that's exactly what I do. I have a significant other that won't let me put the air conditioning on when I want to sometimes. So we never go above 75-ish, but we never go below 71-ish. And so it just works out. If you live in an area like that, it works out. You can use a temperature rise to increase reproduction. I mean, there are tricks for that, but I would say as a newcomer, just get used to keeping them first.
Yeah.
Then come back and we'll talk about getting them to breed if they're not, because in every situation I've ever had with seahorses, they bred instantly regardless of the temperature. So in my case now I'm having troubles, but I think it's more about me and having the all-in-one and my schedule. So don't take that to heart. If you want fry, don't worry about it yet. Just set up your tank to where you don't need a chiller if you can stay between 71 and 75 and, get them happy, get them used to you. And I will say too that Cheryl talked about they can survive massive swings in temperature. I would say I understand why she's saying that, and she's right, and they can, but not repeatedly. Not if it's every day.
Yeah.
And she's talking about a temperature swing that went down. So it got colder. So they literally went into hibernation. Hang on. They went into hibernation, like Holly was talking about. They got slower. They got to the point where they were lying at the bottom of the bag, but they were still alive. So Cheryl was able to revive them slowly. In my case, the worst case of treating a sick seahorse happened when I had a temperature spike. Okay, so we say they can handle it, but they can't daily. And if the temperature is going up instead of down, that's a bad thing, because I had to treat 3.
I've heard it's about a 4-degree range.
Wait, hang on, let me finish. Because I have a video out there about treating these seahorses for a bacterial infection, and I did, and they survived, but it was awful. They got so sick because I let my air conditioner went out. The temp spiked. They were at like 82 when I got home, and this is in a matter of hours. And that you don't want to happen is my only point. Go ahead, Holly.
One of the things you
I've
have
read
to look at
somewhere that it's about a 4-degree fluctuation that they can handle safely. Like if you're doing water changes and things like that, you want to keep water within a 4-degree range. Also, I see for Zen Ginger that does get up to 74, 75. So you're hitting that ceiling really close. I would be prepared for if you have a heat wave Yeah, I mean, to me, I see things getting hotter and hotter in some parts of the country. I would be prepared and have fans or frozen bottles of water or something, even chillers at the ready, just in case you do have a day where it goes past that range. I would be prepared for it.
Hey, and Ray said in the wild, temps can range even 10 degrees Fahrenheit in a matter of
Mhm,
hours. Right, but they have an
mhm,
ocean, right? It's different when you're talking about a box. When you're talking about a box and the bacteria and the organisms within that box, it just makes a
mhm.
huge difference when there's a rapid swing. And I'm telling you, I'm living proof. I've had to deal with it. When the temp goes up over 4 degrees, as Holly said, in an hour, you're gonna have problems if the temp is going up. Is my 2 cents. I get your point.
I've never ever had trouble in short term.
Yeah, one of the things I do is I have what are called turbine blowers. They're actually used on construction sites. They're very high
Mhm.
powered fans. And I use those in the fish room because it will drop, you can drop your trimp depending on how high you set them. If you set them on the highest level, it's going to drop them close to 10 degrees on your tanks. But they have three different powers and they're easy enough to work with. And they come apart easily for cleaning.
Sure.
And that is one source that I prefer over trying to use a chiller because a chiller is prone to mechanical problems with
Well, some people have to use a chiller, like in Holly's situation. And I loved Holly's point that if you're depending on your AC to work, and as the temperatures get hotter, that's literally
Stuff
exactly
happens.
what happened to me. Is my
yeah.
AC went out, and I was at work, and I came home, and the tank was 82 to 85 degrees, and it was a mess. And Ray said he never saw problems short term. My seahorses weren't freaking out. They were fine. I was
Mhm.
freaking out because the temp had gone up 15 degrees or something, or, well, 10 degrees. And I made the mistake of trying to lower it too quickly. But the bottom line is, it does depend on the situation. You can have a seahorse tank just using your AC, but as Holly said, be prepared because you don't want to spike. Even though they can survive it, you might have problems afterwards. So just don't. And yeah, Ray, I'm never going to fall for that because any comparison to the ocean is just
Yeah.
completely different. Completely.
The primary reason that the temp is set at a max of 74 for Erectus is because these seahorses are prone to
Vibrio.
parasites.
Oh,
And uh, right as the water warms, Vibrio becomes pathogenic to them.
yep.
And that's why we tell everybody to keep them below 74 or below. But my point is, even if you get into a hard freeze situation, they can literally survive that
Sure.
going torpid on the substrate and don't give up on them because I have brought more than one back from a freezing situation.
Well, no, great point, Cheryl. And the three that I had in the tank that my air went out and it hit 84, 85, whatever, I saved them. I was able to treat them. They lived. They ended up reproducing for me. Everything was fine. But it was just a huge process that I don't think any newcomer wants to deal with.
No,
So, again, Zen, you're
Mhm.
fine if you can keep the tanks 70, 75. You're good. Just have alternative methods, like easy ones, like Holly said, like water bottles or fans,
Mhm.
just in
no.
case something happens.
Yeah, just in case something happens, you're ready, I would say. But your temperatures, of your house sound perfect. And that's about how mine ends up being. But that 68 to 72 in the winter here, I even with the heaters on my tanks, I've trouble keeping it
Like,
up.
Wow. See,
we,
I,
we,
I wish I ever
Yeah.
had that trouble of keeping it up. My house is
My house gets
but
cold.
we
and
just
I
got
do
to
want to
hold on. We
I
just
wait,
got
wait, I do want to say on Ray's point,
a post
short
from
chain elevation is not normally a problem if you're doing things right. And I will point out that when I came home and my temperature had spiked, I tried to lower the temperature too quickly. So another point is if you do come home to a crisis, Go slowly. Don't freak out. Don't like try to make drastic changes. Just like the temperature already rose slowly, let it come down slowly with water bottles or fans or whatever. Don't try to, dump in a bunch of freezing cold water. That's not going to work. That'll make them sicker. So,
Yeah.
And that's how Zen Ginger's asking about freezing RO water in bottles. I don't even use RO water. I just use regular water. I keep it in my deep freeze in 2-liter pop bottles. And then I put them, I enclose them in a Ziploc bag before I put them in the sup, just around it, just in case there's any residue on the outside of that bottle, that might harm the tank, especially if there's a label on the bottle that's going to come apart or something. But if you have totally clean 2-liter pop bottles, you don't even need to put them in a bag or anything. You can just float them. I put them down in the sump.
I'm
when
dying to jump to Bonnie's question about the colder temps affecting beneficial bacteria. I want to hear Ray's answer on that. Do colder temperatures affect beneficial bacteria?
No,
Why not?
they might slow up the growth of it if you're trying to cycle a tank, but it's definitely not going to knock it out or keep it from working as effective. Once they're there, they're there. And as long as they've got the food that they need to keep the levels at whatever they're at, they're going to be there.
Yeah.
I don't agree. I absolutely.
I haven't had any issues with that at the temp that I use.
Wait, let me have it out with Ray. What'd you say, Ray?
I said we disagree on lots of things, so there's nothing strange there.
Especially my hair color, right? No, I'm just kidding. But no.
I want to know what makes you think. What is there about the cold water that's going to keep them from or make it not grow as well or keep up the level?
Well, that's why I'm disagreeing, is so that we can deepen the conversation and get somewhere, because I'm not a scientist and I really don't have a single clue about all of that. But in everything I've learned, you have to have a certain temp to get the bacteria thriving. I get what you said about it's different if you're cycling a tank. But in general, I feel like if you lower the temperature, think about what we say to people.
How about my abs?
Hang on. We say you want 74 degrees so that the Vibrio in the tank doesn't grow rapidly and attack the seahorses in a way they can't handle. So you would think if you lower the temperature, the Vibrio is going to be much lower. But when you talk beneficial bacteria, I do think there's a cutoff. I don't know what it is, but you have to think as the temperature lowers, the beneficial bacteria will say, oh, we're not needed as much or something, and then lower. And then if the temperature goes back up, there's not as much. I'm not saying this
I think if you get it that low, then your seahorses are going to be in trouble too.
I'm asking. I don't really understand it, because to me, just like Bonnie.
I don't believe you're ever going to have the tank that low that it's going to be a problem.
So it's just a matter of how low. It's not a matter of being low.
Yeah, like if you put it down close to freezing, you got a problem with the seahorses as well as your beneficial bacteria.
So why?
And I'm not even sure that the beneficial bacteria is going to die off or anything. It just won't
multiply,
replenish itself at a faster rate as the warmer water.
I want to get someone like Dr.
I have an experience with this, a personal experience. I'll tell you in a minute.
Let me finish what I was saying, then I'll let you talk, I promise. But I want to get someone like Dr. Tim in here to answer these questions, because I'd love a scientist to really tell us what is the cutoff point that beneficial bacteria dies, high or low? Because it doesn't make sense to me that we need these high temperatures to cycle a tank, and that affects the cycle so much, but then you turn around and say it can go as low as it wants. I know you didn't say that. You said there's probably a cutoff point. I want to know what it is, because with your abs, they were used to living at that temperature. Possibly they don't need as much beneficial bacteria or the good bacteria in the tank because there's not as much bad stuff. I don't know, but it just
if it was a problem, it would have been discussed on Seahorse forums, aquarium forums, years ago.
Well, we've learned some stuff since years ago, Ray. So I'm just trying to extend
I've
the
had a
knowledge.
personal
And so,
experience
How
with
many
this, you
people? How
guys.
many people have trouble?
I know.
Okay. All right. So I don't know if you'll remember, but when I was first starting my Seahorse tank years ago, we had a huge fire in my community. And I had just started cycling a saltwater
A
tank.
live stream.
I had 2 fish in it and a cleanup crew. When the fire happened, we were evacuated for a month. The temperatures went from close to 80 the day the fire started to 32 degrees the next day because the sun was blocked out by smoke. I lost everything in my saltwater tank, fish, everything. What happened was the power was shut off for a week. Everything got cold. They had no oxygen. When I came home a month later, the tank had evaporated some. It was really high in salinity. But because the power had come back on after everything died, the tank recycled itself. I didn't have to wait long to add animals back into it. So the bacteria survived those cold temperatures and was still there. Now, in the house, when we got home, I want to say it was probably in the 40s. So it was very cold. So I think, like Ray says, the bacteria probably
It
survives to a certain point near freezing.
could
But
also
if
people.
I had it, my tank would not have stayed
Wrong.
cycled
You're
through all
wrong.
that.
You're wrong. I'm sorry. I really think you're wrong because, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm feeling passionate about this because that doesn't make sense to me. People used to cycle a tank by throwing a piece of dead shrimp. If you, Tori, get the door. Sorry. But if you had a tank that crashed, completely crashed, and you let it sit there, there's dead stuff in there. That means bacteria is going to grow as the temperature rises back up. So even if you did nothing, didn't clean it, didn't anything, it's not that the bacteria survived. It's that new bacteria grew because of the dead stuff in the tank. Is my thoughts. Am I way off, you guys?
Now, the bacteria didn't die because of the cold temperatures. It died because
No, actually.
it lost
Right.
the oxygen and circulation
Oxygen.
and so on.
But either way, you could set dead stuff in a tank and bacteria would grow. Think about a glass of water on the table. I mean, it's going to grow. So I don't think it's that the bacteria didn't die. I think it was able to regrow based on the dead stuff in the tank. Is just my thought. I'm not good at all the science stuff. And I do want to say, guys, we've gotten into this deep discussion about bacteria and none of us are scientists. So what I will say for the end of the day is then, Ginger, do not let this terrify you from keeping a seahorse tank. You've kept discus, and discus are hard, okay? You know what it's like. And bottom line is you can keep them easily. We're just talking about worst case scenarios and avoiding these traumas, right? These tragic things. Keeping the temperature within a certain range is just the best. Whether the bacteria dies, whether, it doesn't really matter if you keep your tank where it needs to be, right? I mean, I just wanted to throw that out there because I get passionate about these things because I like the science of it. I want to learn more. I want to understand it better, but I don't. So I just want to make sure anybody new knows you can keep seahorses as long as me and still not understand it. Okay. That's it. Ray, were you going to say something? I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say I'm going to be
Am I talking
signing
to
off
myself?
now. That's for 2 hours now, and with the problems I've got with her, I hate leaving her any longer than that.
I don't think they heard anything.
Aw. Well, take care of her.
Take care.
Go away. You just. Okay, sorry. Did you guys lose me?
No,
No? So I'm like, it
no.
was Siriing me. I couldn't see you. I couldn't hear you. I couldn't do anything.
Oh no, we could see and hear you.
Okay, well, sorry. My kid's trying to talk to me in the background. But I hope I made my point that, don't give up. You can do it, is the point. And I'm sorry, I'm concerned with the OH after the fact. Anybody know what that's about? I feel like I'm talking to myself because
Well, I'm more concerned with the after the fact.
Oh.
I just have to have everything all planned out before I start a project, but I'm not terrified at all anymore.
There we go.
So yeah, don't worry about that. Yeah, stuff happens. So just just think about what could happen and be prepared, and you'll be fine. You said you have generators. Yeah, that's good. I keep generators because I need them here now and then. And yeah, like I was saying, if you know your house gets to the point where it's iffy temperature wise, just be prepared for that and have a solution if that does happen, and you'll be fine.
Agreed. All right, guys.
The thing is, too, you can even, for shorter term power outages, which periodically happen, you can get a smaller, even sun powered generator that can keep all your tanks working perfectly for a number of hours, which is something else to think about and consider.
And she's got 2 generators, she says, so she's prepared. I have 2 now too. A friend gave me another one, so I've got 2 big generators now. So if one suddenly doesn't work, there's another one to back it up. Yeah, just things like that.
Yeah, you tend to lose power a lot, multiple times sometimes.
Well, they plan ours where I am, because I live in a high fire danger area. They shut down our power. And and then in the winter, we've got winter storms. And, we're in an area that burned before. So trees fall and stuff happens. So, yeah.
See,
You know what? We have not had power out since winter, though. We did not have any planned power outages this summer. For once. Like,
I have
usually our summer was mild. We did not get that hot here.
I have a generator that I have never used in over 20 years. I'm sure it's antiquated by now. But the thing is, I'm on the same circuit, same feed as 2 military installations. So we are the last to get cut off and the first to get turned back on if anything happens.
We're not going to let your power go out.
It makes it pretty easy for me. But it's usually the worst storm we had was when I had my first good brood of fry, and the neighbor's tree came down and took out the power specifically to my house, and it was out for over 12 hours. But the thing is, they were little bitty and they were icy cold, and they actually got through that quite without any problems. But it was one of those things where I was in tears. I'll admit it.
Sure, but you figured it out. Hey, I wanted to throw out there real quick that Bonnie said you could probably add bottled saltwater bacteria to a tank to keep it going. Absolutely. But again, depending on the situation we're talking about, if you watch Dr. Tim's videos, man, I want to get him in here to talk to us, because if you watch his videos, he talks about temperature too. And that bottle bacteria, even though it's sitting on a shelf somewhere, once you add it to the salt water, it still needs a certain temperature to thrive and survive, right? So I don't have an answer for you, but I definitely would use bottle bacteria if I was in a crisis. So good point. Holly, you wanted to say what Zen said?
Oh, so she's saying after the Texas snowpocalypse.
That was the one that...
In 2021, when we froze for a week, I got a second generator because that's when I lost my discus.
We were okay on that one, but a lot of my friends and people I know went days without any power at all. And that was a real bear.
Yeah, when I was a kid here, I mean, back in the 70s, early 80s, I remember power being out for over a week sometimes in the winter.
Well, if this is the one I'm thinking of, this is the one that totally blew my water system, and I had to have everything completely replaced.
Yes.
I've been here for over 30 years, so everything kind of rolls together.
Sorry, guys,
Mhm.
I'm jumping around doing 50 things. Apologize, but no, I hear you. What else do we have to chit chat about tonight, Holly, or have we covered it all? It is 10:13.
Yep,
Sorry.
yep.
All right.
Talked about everything I could think of that I'd want to talk about.
There we go. And sometimes we dive into these discussions and we need to get someone in here to give us better answers. I've already reached out to Robert King to maybe come chat with us again about the chamber and maybe dealing with the sponge and possibly what's new with him. I will reach out again to Dr. Tim or anyone like him. If you guys have a suggestion on someone you want to come in and talk to us about bacteria, I want answers. So I'd love to have someone in here to talk about it. But for tonight, I think, Holly, you led it, so you're going to tell us.
All right. Well, everyone, my drink's empty too. Thank you.
My
All
coffee
right.
cup.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for joining us, everybody.
you.
And you guys all have a good night, and we'll see you next week. Cheers.
Happy Wine Wednesday.